Welcome to another edition of In the Winner's Circle. Renee Cairns along with Jennifer Morrison. We're getting closer to Kentucky Derby time. Tomorrow at Aqueduct, $500,000 guaranteed pick four. It begins with the Gazelle, but it ends with what I think is one of the best pre-Kentucky Derby races, and that is the Grade 1 Wood Memorial. Horses coming out of that race generally do extremely well at Churchill.
And it's the time of year we're all excited. Horses are grabbing these big points in the big Derby prep races. The new system, very exciting to watch. You have to run well in these races to get the big points. Last weekend we saw Orb win the Florida Derby, get the big points. Revolutionary is suddenly up there now, winning the Louisiana Derby at Fairgrounds. Let's see what happens in the Wood Memorial. We're going to tell you.
Yeah, we're already seeing some horses that looked as though they were logical contenders that have already fallen by the wayside as far as the Kentucky Derby Trail. But that's going to be the final leg of that $500,000 guaranteed pick four from Aqueduct. Let's begin with the Gazelle. It's a Grade 2, a race for the girls, 3-year-old fillies, going around 2 turns. And I think it's a pretty interesting tilt.
It's a very interesting race. I have several check marks in here, but I think the race begins and ends with Princess of Sylmar. And if you think that you look at this horse and you thinking of Dreaming of Julia, that powerful winner last weekend in the Gulfstream Oaks for Todd Pletcher.
By 25 lengths?
21 and a half lengths. Here's a filly who won her maiden by 19 lengths and has not been beaten since then. This filly is freshened. She's 9 to 5 in the morning line. If you're betting the pick four, guaranteed $500,000 at Aqueduct. I would assume that most people are going to key this horse. Personally, I can't see that anybody's going to beat her. I know Close Hatches is 2 for 2 for Bill Mott, but this race begins and ends with the Todd Pletcher trainee, Princess of Sylmar.
Todd Pletcher, loaded for bear. Walk with a Purpose might be one that you want to entertain as well. She is also one that has a terrific record, almost $300,000 beside her name. She's won 5 out of just 6 starts. And Jeremy Rose has been her regular rider for all but that first Lifetime start.
She's the front runner. She's the one that everybody has to catch, but she is not going to know what's going to hit her when Princess of Sylmar blows by.
Okay, you heard it here first. So that's the first leg of that $500,000 guaranteed pick four. Now we get to the Bayshore. It's a Grade 3, also for the 3-year-olds. When you think of 3-year-olds at this time of year, you're thinking a mile and a quarter. Not all horses want to go a mile and a quarter. This is a 7/8 race going around 1 turn. And again, I think this is a pretty interesting field as well. And you've got $250,000 on the line.
Well, this is a perfect example of what you said. This race, 7 furlongs. There was some discussion that clearly now the Canadian-owned colt, who began his career at Woodbine, might go from the Swale Stakes victory into the Florida Derby. Brian Lynch obviously has had a change of heart, sticking with the horse's best distance. He's 5 to 2 in the morning line, and clearly now off the Swale win is certainly a horse to beat. Another one in there who was entertaining thoughts of perhaps heading down the Triple Crown Trail was Honorable Dillon. He won the Hutchison Stakes at Gulfstream, tried the Tampa Bay Derby, faded badly. Now he's regrouping and getting back to 7 furlongs, coming to New York. Tricky race to handicap. The horse I actually quite like in there is the number 4 horse, Salutos Amigos. I love the pattern with the big race 2 starts ago. A slight decline last time when he ran against Hear the Ghost in the San Felipe. Coming from California, I'm looking for him to make a late kick. 4, 6, and 8 in the pick four for the Bayshore. Did you see anything else?
I'm going to throw the 5 in there as a long shot play. That's Declan's Warrior going for Nick Zito. Jose Lezcano's going to ride him. I thought he broke his maiden first time out. I thought it was a nice win coming from off the pace last time out. He is going to be running at Belmont for the first time, or in New York rather, for the first time since he broke his maiden coming from off the pace. And then you've got a horse sent out by Kira McLaughlin, the son of Indian Charlie, known as Malay. Am I pronouncing it properly? I'm not really sure.
Malay.
Malay, the son of Indian Charlie. That's another one that has been ultra impressive so far in his career. He is 2 for 2. Will he be able to step up against Grade 3 company? He just won the Capicella, and that was at Aqueduct. So coming off the shelf, it was a good race, and it was at Aqueduct. And sometimes horse for course is something that you want to look at as well.
And it's very important. That's race 9 at Aqueduct. It's very important with Aqueduct and other tracks for sure. But to try and watch the races early on in the day if you can get a chance.
I don't know what the pattern is.
Exactly. If there's horses that are, winning on the lead all day long. You know, even if you're not a track biased person, take a look at what's happening. Are horses coming from off the pace on a regular basis? Are they leading all the way? If you can't see all the races before you make your bet, quickly go on the internet. Check the charts.
Just have a look.
Have a look
and sometimes it's just a function of weather, and I mean how that's affected the track as far as moisture in the track. Sometimes because there's more moisture, horses just seem to bounce over it and they don't get tired. Sometimes it's a factor of wind. If you've got a strong wind, it'll scoot them down the backstretch where horses really don't have to work that hard. And then down the lane, it's hard for closers to get by horses that are not tired.
Exactly. It's not necessarily a track bias. It could be a track weather bias. You saw that yesterday at Gulfstream with the deep slop in the last day of racing, and speed carried very well.
Some horses, and we don't see that at Woodbine these days, the slop, but used to see that mud mark in the racing form. His mutter was a mutter. His fodder was a mutter, and they could just slop right through it. But, okay, let's move on with our $500,000 guaranteed pick 4 from Aqueduct as we get to the Grade 1 Carter. Going 7/8. Here you've got the older horses, a field of 7. Is it all about Discreet Dancer? On paper, it appears that it is, but that's just on paper. This race is going to be run out on the racetrack.
I am against Discreet Dancer.
All right, I like it.
I think
I hope you're demanding value.
I am demanding value, and I think I'm going to get some nice value here. I'm going for a long shot in this race. Discreet Dancer, well, we know what happened last time. He was in the Gulfstream Park Handicap, and last year's Breeders' Cup Classic winner, Fort Larn, was in the race, lost his jockey, end of story. Discreet Dancer got away. Look at, he powered away to a 5-length win, 102 Beyer figure. Lovely horse.
Not a big field.
But now he's in New York. I am looking at a very interesting horse here. Brigand cost a ridiculous amount of money, Renee, as a 2-year-old by Flatter. And not the greatest commercial pedigree you'll ever see, but here is a horse that cost almost $1 million as a 2-year-old. He's won $300,000 and he's 4, but I think he's getting ready, and he's ready now.
He's sitting on a big race?
He's ready to step up.
What makes you think he's sitting on a big race now? He hasn't run since mid-February. Advantage, disadvantage.
Well, I think
Or beginning of April.
Well, because he was going steadily for quite a long time at that point. Bob Baffert, had this horse going at various different racetracks. Laurel, Belmont, Saratoga. He's been everywhere.
Mountaineer.
Here's a horse that can carry his speed 1 mile.
Delmar.
Definitely a 7-furlong horse, though. Look at his record going 7 furlongs. Off the freshening. Boy, you never see John Velazquez riding for Bob Baffert.
Not much,
Very interesting.
Not much.
Interesting move here. But I love the freshening. I love the fact that this horse was creeping up with the 99, 98 Beyer figures at the end of last year. He needed some time off. He's been going pretty hard, pretty steadily. A New York bred, cost a lot of money. I think he's the one, and look at him, 10-1 in the morning line.
That's a nice juicy price. I like that because you know that Discreet Dancer is going to take all the money, most of the money, and I think a lot of people will probably key him in their pick 4.
And the way you want to play
so they can go a bit deeper elsewhere.
That's right. And the way you want to play it is try and, if you like a short price horse, throw a favorite in there as well, though, because these are the races at this time of year where you want a price.
Tell me what you think about Sahara Sky for Jerry Hollendorfer with Joel Rosario to ride him.
That horse, a pair of 102 Beyer figures.
Yes, on paper he looks pretty impressive.
He looks pretty impressive. However, he had 2 of his best races of his life in succession off a very long layoff. There was probably lots of us that thought he was going to bounce last time, and he didn't. He gutted out a very difficult, hard-fought win. Today, or Saturday, in the Carter, is the day he is going to bounce.
You heard it here first?
You heard it here somewhere.
He's coming in from Santa Anita for a trainer that really can take a horse pretty much anywhere. He's always done very well in Northern California. Lost in the Fog is a horse in recent memory that took him all over the States. But Sahara Sky, he's at 2-1. But is it going to be all about Discreet Dancer? That horse is going to take a ton of money. Is it legit? Well, we'll find out when race number 10 runs. Now, we're going to get to the final leg of that $500,000 guaranteed pick 4, and this is where we're going to talk a little bit of Derby. Wood Memorial, Grade 1, mile and 1/8. When I'm looking at my Derby horses, I like to see who has done well in the Wood Memorial because I think history dictates that this is a race that has always produced horses that have gone on to do so well on that first Saturday in May. Verrazano, Todd Pletcher, we mentioned him. What about Vijak for Rudy Rodriguez? Another horse that has a legitimate chance to win this race.
Well, what's important about these races now, Renee, is that they're 1.1 miles. We're not going a mile or a mile
stretching
16.
out.
We're stretching out, and
stamina is starting to be tested.
Stamina, and we want to see our horses finishing well. Obviously, Verrazano is going to be 3-5, 2-5 in the Wood Memorial. He has done nothing wrong. He won the Tampa Bay Derby like he was supposed to. Look, if you're following the Kentucky Derby trail for the last umpteen years, you have to be suspicious of the Tampa Bay Derby. Okay, it did produce a recent Derby winner in Super Saver, but in general, it's a track and a race that's not going to have a high-profile Kentucky Derby contender. It'll be fun to watch Verrazano, see if he can coast, cruising speed, win going 1.1 miles. I'm a huge fan of Normandy Invasion.
Yeah.
I know he has a big following. Chad Brown has a lot of big horses in his barn. Hasn't really won the big ones in the last little while. Still waiting for him, but if you watched Normandy Invasion last time, he closed well in the much maligned Risen Star Stakes. After a horrible start, he's working well. The thing about Vijak is, I love the way he ran and closed last time. I'm a little suspicious about that race. I thought that maybe
the quality of it, you mean?
Well, the quality and the way that it sort of collapsed at the end. I thought, the pace doesn't look like it was very fast, but it was actually quite contested, and he picked up pieces. I am not sure that the race is going to go that way this time around. So I'm actually looking for Normandy Invasion to give Verrazano a try in the stretch. Those are the only two horses that I would use in the Wood Memorial.
Yeah, Normandy Invasion went off as the favorite, and that was his first start as a 3-year-old. And to me, I think that was money that was not well spent, because he had other horses, and we had talked about it before the race. You had other horses that had already a race or two under their belt, but now Normandy Invasion has that race under his belt. Castellano is going to ride him. It had been Jose Lezcano. He's going to be riding the inside horse, Chris and the Caper for Jason Service. He's ridden that horse before. If Verrazano wins, what about Johnny Velasquez? Choices between Orb, who won the Florida Derby, and I love the way he won it, coming from off the pace, dirt in his face, the whole bit, or Verrazano for Todd Pletcher, one of his main clients. The race hasn't been run yet. We don't know, but I think that could be a pretty tough decision for him.
And I'm pretty excited about the quality of the 3-year-olds this year. I think
it's a good one, isn't it?
Coming around quite nicely.
Yeah. And as far as that pick 4, it's going to end with a Grade 1 Wood Memorial and hopefully the Derby picture, which seems to be scattered sort of all over the place with some pretty nice 3-year-olds, as you just mentioned. Could be a little clearer. If Verrazano wins so easily, boy, it's going to be tough not to make him the favorite in the Derby between him or Revolutionary. But I tend to think that Verrazano, if he wins the Wood Memorial fairly easily, I think he'll be the choice.
And we have the Bluegrass coming up next weekend, but on Polytrack.
That's on Polytrack.
And the Arkansas Derby. Exactly. So, 2 different races next week, but it'll be fun to watch the Wood Memorial and hopefully get that pick 4.
I love that race. So, as far as Aqueduct, we can wrap that up. We're just going to quickly touch on a couple of other tracks. Keeneland, of course, starting Friday afternoon on April 5th. Grade 1 Ashland. I think this is going to be pretty interesting. Canadian content. How about Nipissing? Now, I know they spoke about the fact that the Oaks a little bit later this year at Woodbine because we're starting later. They need a place to go. She's got no conditions. She's going to be going forward. So too is Spring Venture for Mark Casse, who's got so many good horses in his barn. And Spring in the Air is in the field as well.
Well, Nipissing, as if you're reading notes and keeping track of what's going on, she needs a place to start. I find it interesting that she's adding Lasix for her season debut. She's never lost a race. We don't really know how good she is.
She's won so easily every time.
She's won so easily. We don't know what kind of horses she's beating, Canadian breds or Ontario sire horses. Let's just watch her in this race. The Mark Casse duo of Spring Venture and Spring in the Air both raced at OBS in the non-wagering events, and they were battling each other to the finish. I think Spring in the Air is the better horse. I think Spring in the Air, who's a Canadian bred, might be Mark Casse's best 3-year-old of any sex, male or female. I'm going to watch and see, but I think that she is poised to run a big race here. She won the Alcibiades at Keeneland last season, so I think we're looking at Spring in the Air, Spring Venture. My long shot for the Ashland is a horse by the name of Kitten's Dumplings, who has raced strictly on turf, except for once she ran the Alcibiades and almost fell on her head that day.
So that doesn't really count.
That's right. So here's a 15-1 shot in the morning line. Kitten's Dumplings, the Ashland, a wide open race, and that race is going to tell us who's going to be the major contenders to tackle Dreaming of Julia in the Kentucky Oaks.
And I was reading on your blog the other day about a bunch of 2-year-olds breezing at Keeneland, and what, 3/4 of them had kitten in their name or something?
That's right. There's a lot of kittens, and the kittens love the polytrack. They love the turf, they love the polytrack. Don't be worried about horses making the turf to polytrack switch at Keeneland. It can be done, and it can be done well.
Yeah, and you can often, find yourself a pretty nice price. We're just about running out of time here, but we're going to quickly touch on the Santa Anita Derby as we check over on what's happening on the left coast. We've got a field of 9, a mile and an eighth, $750,000 on the line. There is a scratch, though. Significant scratch of the 2. Hear the Ghost, is that correct? You've scratched him off your sheet?
Yes, Hear the Ghost has to be off the racetrack for about 4 months. He had an injury, and they wanted to take their time. Very disappointing. A nice Ghost Zapper, too, for Dana Springs, the son of Ghost Zapper. So.
Ghost Zappers, I love them, but they seem to be just a little soft.
Well, I guess that's looking like it's
but
certainly
I love
true.
Them.
That's right. I mean, they may have a little bit of issues, but certainly Hear the Ghost was a nice prospect. Now we're down to a field of 8. I think that what we're talking about this race is, again, a 2-horse race between Flashback and Golden Sense. If you watch the San Felipe, you know exactly what happened. Both 3-year-olds were far too eager. They dueled themselves into submission. Yeah. Flashback fought so hard. Golden Sense we want to cheer for because he's from the Bold Ruckus Mare Bodyworks family. So Manitoba is going to be cheering. Phil Kivas bred that whole female family. But I think Flashback is the real deal. And I think Flashback, with the rider switch to Garrett Gomez, is going to win the Santa Anita Derby.
Trained by, you guessed it,
Bob Baffert.
Bob Baffert. You excited?
I'm excited.
It's Derby fever time.
It's Derby fever.
There's a lot going on.
It's spring fever.
It is spring fever. See, I've seen lots of robins so far this week, and that is the surest harbinger of spring when the first robin shows up.
You got it.
And all we need is a nice warm rain, and grass will start just springing out of the ground. But so far, it seems like the winter that will never end. A bit of an extended version of In the Winner's Circle. Renee Cairns along with Jennifer Morrison. And hopefully we do see you there in the Winner's Circle.